It's 7:01. I'll call this meeting of the City of Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission to order. Could we have a roll call?
Bill Brown.
Here.
Annie Adams.
Here.
Kara Dudek.
Here.
Yosef Shaw. Here. Audrey Ishii.
Here.
Susan Jones. Daniel Sapphire.
Here.
Bruce Michelson.
Here.
Stacy DiLorenzo. Nancy Westcott.
Here.
And John Zeman here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thanks. Next is additions to the agenda. Are there any additions? I think we have one correction maybe. Under new business, the traffic and crash reports that we were going to do in November, but then it didn't get taken off. So Audrey instead is going to do the urban area safety plan update under unfinished business. I think we'll have plenty on our agenda. Anything else? Okay. Approval of minutes from the previous meetings. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, could I have a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Moved by Bruce and seconded by Kara. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Public input. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak for 4 minutes? Audrey.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. This is the public input that I gave yesterday at the council, so I figured BPAC should probably hear it as well. Turned it off again, sorry. On tonight's agenda, you have a budget amendment for the traffic study at Vine and Water, $15,000. But like the study done at Vine and Main, it is a reactive piecemeal response to a pedestrian death. We know that Joseph Wilski was killed there in January, and 3 years ago, Shelley Taylor was killed crossing Main at Vine towards Starbucks. Both were killed by turning pickups that just didn't see the victims until too late. Both drivers were doubtlessly traumatized by the event and subsequent legal effects. So I applaud the city's effort to understand what went wrong and how it can perhaps be made better, even if it is one intersection at a time. But I want to talk about taking a more systemic approach to Urbana's pedestrian deaths. Both the Vine Street crashes occurred in crosswalks. Last May, Christopher Bowen was killed crossing Cunningham Avenue where it narrows at Park Street. The alternative for him was a 3-minute walk to the crosswalk, plus the need to cross many scary lanes of traffic at 5 points. And in January 2021, Tonya Barnett took the MTD bus to the bus stop at East Main and Dewey and started across the narrow street to the mobile home neighborhood after the bus had departed. The nearest crosswalk was a 6-minute walk away. As we know from the first 2 crashes, crosswalks offer absolutely no promise of safety. But no study nor response of any kind was needed for these deaths. Simple, they weren't in a crosswalk. Is it normal to have so many pedestrians killed in a town this size? While we have had 2 pedestrian deaths this year, we've been averaging 1 per year since 2007. However, in the 10 years before 2007, we had 3 pedestrian deaths over 10 years. It's not normal to jump from 0.3 deaths per year to 1. It's the difference between being a rare tragedy to an annual statistic. It is above Chicago's rate and far above Indianapolis. But let's just compare with Champaign for now. Over the same 2 10-year periods before and after 2007 that Urbana went from 3 to 10 pedestrian deaths, Champaign actually dropped from 8 to 6 deaths, with more than twice our population. Our overall traffic deaths increased from 12 to 21, while Champaign's went from 34 to 32. Champaign went from nearly 3 times Urbana's pedestrian deaths to 60% of Urbana's deaths. Why have you not heard of this before? Urbana turns to the Regional Planning Commission for much of our traffic planning, jointly with Champaign, Mahomet, and Savoy. Since 2018, RPC stopped providing separate city crash values in the annual report cards. Instead, they are referring to an agglomerated urbanized area that lumps everything together. Why does this matter? RPC is optimizing crash statistics across the entire region. If Urbana's fatalities go up but Champaign's fatalities go down, it's all the same to RPC. If we aren't even aware this is happening because they've agglomerated the statistics, tough luck. Champaign can be the economic engine for the area, and Urbana can be the speedy afterthought. The crashes all have one thing in common, and it is cars traveling faster than the driver can see the people right in front of them, or faster than the human victims can see them coming or judge their speed. If we want to stop this, we must change the systemic culture that is in place on Urbana streets. Recent News Gazette front page stories have covered the efforts of Savoy and Champaign to change the speed culture. Champaign has been doing speed enforcement. Even its chief has ridden on patrols. And here's an example of the front page story in July about Champaign's increased speed enforcement. Savoy has dropped its residential speed limit to 25 miles an hour. Talk about a systemic approach to creating a livable community. While we're addressing the root causes of violence, let's not forget having a civil street culture that values human life. I'll be sending you my public comment to RPC about their agglomerated statistics. Please read it. This is something we can influence at no cost to Urbana. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Charlie.
Charlie Smythe, Urbana resident and outgoing Champaign County Bikes chair. As I wrap up my tenure as the CCB chair, I want to bring up a major concern and some unfinished business. Some of this will probably be part of your discussions tonight. My concern, and I've raised these with Gabe Lewis of RPC, is that Urbana is in danger of losing its goal-friendly bike community status designation. The criteria for the League of American Bicyclists program has changed substantially. It's seriously revised to put new emphasis on speed, infrastructure, and connectivity that increases the safety of vulnerable users. They've raised the BFC standards around slow roads and strong bike networks. Equity has replaced enforcement as one of the 5 E's of its evaluation process, though many of the related questions are embedded in other sections of the application. You know, I don't know if anybody gets the latest issue of American Bicyclist magazine talks about these changes. Beyond the MCOR changes to Green Street, the city has little to show for infrastructure or connectivity, with only one marginally small improvement at Main and Lincoln. Despite these efforts, Lincoln Avenue remains an unsafe 4-lane strode, serving as a quick conduit for vehicle commuters associated with the U of I and Carl living in St. Joe, Mahomet, or beyond, and for Urbana residents quickly getting to and from North Neal and North Prospect shopping areas. Having become even more residential with the addition of many apartment complexes and other residences along Lincoln Avenue, it's only a matter of time before we see another casualty. At our recent CCB annual meeting, Tony Shirola spoke about a number of topics, including work that's being done in Hanford, Connecticut, to improve their streets and make them safer. He provided several suggestions for fixing Lincoln Avenue. So I'd like to show those. I'll just skip to the first slide, or second slide here. He retrofit some, he basically did a road diet and turned one lane in each direction into a bike lane, a protected bike lane. These bollards are fairly inexpensive and screw into the pavement. His other suggestion is to improve the crosswalks along this area. And he gives an example here using planters and some paint, and again, these bollards and some signs. They had a problem in Hartford of cars using the turn lane as a passing lane and doing a lot of speeding and such. And in fact, you know, a car actually ran into one of these planters and totaled the car. It did its job. I'll come back to another slide here in a minute. Anyway, so those are some illustrations. So the planters are a safe island and discourage passing, of course. There are a number of similar 4-lane roads around downtown right here that would be similar candidates. Frankly, protected bike lanes for a stretch of East University, like Tony showed for Lincoln Avenue, may be a way to address some of the safety concerns that I've heard mentioned for that section of State Road. Sharrows are no longer considered infrastructure, so all that mileage will need to be deleted from qualifying infrastructure. There are also several failures to point to. Windsor Road with dangerous ungapped rumble strips, contrary to the recommendations of this body. They're suitable only for interstate roads. IDOT uses shorter gapped rumble strips on its area state highways. I know because I've ridden both interstates and I ride the local state highways. Add to this the lack of support for bike lanes on East University, for educational 3-foot passing signs, or for reducing speed limits, or for providing any traffic calming in residential areas. Interesting, the urban safety plan that the cities have signed off on talks about doing exactly these kinds of educational and speed reduction and infrastructure changes. This is a document, a policy that the city has approved of and does not follow. The long-awaited wayfinding signage, a Cadillac plan, frankly, sits on a shelf. I recently raised the possibility of losing status with a staff member of the League of American Bicyclists and was told that it has happened. Cities have lost their designation. Neighborhood traffic calming through bike boulevards and speed humps is long overdue. As an alternative to enforcement, these are inexpensive infrastructure changes that can be made to save lives and provide recreational spaces and connectivity. This is my last picture here. When West Washington was closed, it essentially became a de facto bike boulevard. The kids in the area loved it. You know, it was effective traffic calming. Going down the road, I really think speed humps on Washington, maybe in both sides, east and west, are called for. I'm concerned as I'm not sure that any of these issues can be addressed in time for the upcoming BFC application. My efforts to add educational signage or address speed limits from my substantial research on city speed limits per ordinance have had no serious responses. As one of the city council members, having supported and voted for this body nearly 17 years ago, I'm disappointed that the city now seems to ignore your input. That was not the intention when we created this body. But given the national trends reflected locally of increased per capita levels of death of vulnerable users at levels higher than neighboring cities and villages, and with serious injuries due to vehicular crashes that are between 30 and 40 times those due to gun violence. You know, gun violence is 300 and some per day. Car serious injuries is over 10,000 per day. It's a 30 to 40 factor difference. So it's important that you as a body keep trying to make a difference. So thank you for your efforts, even if it feels like tilting windmills.
Charlie, I have a question. You mentioned that share roads are no longer going to be considered infrastructure.
Yeah, that's right. They're gone from the application. You can't count any mileage that has sharrows on it.
And can you further explain why?
It's not considered a serious, safe.
Is it the crash data, I suspect, is the
It's
same? My theory, for years what I've read is the crash data is exactly the same on a share road as it is on a road without a share road.
Yeah, there's an explanation here. I gotta find it.
So we'll just be taking all those
I'll pass this around, it's right here.
Okay,
But yeah, all the sharrows have to, the sharrows are there, they serve a function of, sort of warning people that people in cars, the bikes are present, but they're not considered infrastructure,
got it.
okay? And in fact, the preferred infrastructure is some kind of, there's levels of safety, a residential street at 25 miles an hour is different from a 30-mile-an-hour street.
So
Well,
is a 20 to 25 mile per hour street considered infrastructure?
No, but it's considered a safe road. And, look at, people for bikes considers 25 miles an hour and lower, more comfortable level of service, bicycle level of service. There's another term for it, I can't remember. But they downgraded Illinois for its 30-mile-an-hour residential default speed limit.
Right,
Chicago, got whacked for that. And all the cities and, all of us that have various designations, all went down in their rankings because of that. There's a magic number there, 25. 20 is even better. New York City and some other places have a lot of 20-mile-an-hour zones.
in
You look
Seattle.
at what's happened on campus with the 25-mile-an-hour university district, and it's, there've been no serious death. There've been no deaths, and I don't know of any serious injuries that have occurred in the university district. So, we know that it works.
Yeah,
I don't understand why we have 30 miles an hour on a 4-lane road through downtown Urbana when we want people to slow down and spend time in downtown, walking, biking, and spending their money there.
right.
Having, rushing people 30 miles an hour through parts of our town makes no sense.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. It's, I think it's my understanding that in January, people from RPC will be here to talk more about the bicycle-friendly community application. Is that still scheduled?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to mention that sharrows also serve a purpose, an educational purpose for cyclists, I think, because it helps
Mhm.
them with lane positioning. Because the sharrow, in theory, is farther out from the parked cars and things like that. And
Yeah.
so it has a function even if it's not recognized. Okay. Any other public input? Seeing none. Unfinished business. Had a request, instead of this month, normally we review our progress on goals, and we did a pretty thorough job of that last time we met, I guess was October. So I had the request to go over previous recommendations to City Council and kind of provide what's happened with those or update. So I had trouble with my computer, so I wasn't able to put together a presentation. I did put together some files that show previous recommendations. So I think I'll go over there and bring a couple of those up. Okay, so let's see. I'm not sure how far back you wanted to go, but we did have the Vision Zero recommendation in 2021 or 2020, and the council adopted their Vision Zero resolution that said that we would convene as Vision Zero task force 2 to 3 times a year to develop a Vision Zero plan for the city of Urbana that utilizes outside funding sources for projects not already part of the capital improvement plan and city budget. So I guess where we are with that is when Cynthia was still on the committee, invitations, the mayor sent out invitations to other community partners, got a few responses, not very many, but public health definitely agreed. I think 1 or 2 others agreed. to join us, because it's supposed to be a big community effort. And then Cynthia was kind of the lead on that, and now RPC has funding to put together something similar. So that's kind of up in the air, I think, until we hear more about what RPC is going to be doing. Does anybody else have any more updates or thoughts on that? And I think RPC, is that going to be part of their, everybody knows RPC is Regional Planning Commission, right? Okay. Is that going to be part of their presentation in January?
Well, I can see if they'd be able to include that too.
Okay. Because, I mean, I think a regional effort, since some of our community partners were regional and more than just Urbana, it would make more sense for it to be at a regional effort if it's going to accomplish the same thing. But as Audrey pointed out, the statistics lumped together isn't as helpful, although we also have questions about how statistically relevant rare events are when you get down to 1 per year and things like that. So we'd have to kind of look at that a little bit closer. And I mean, even if we can't do the statistics at a town level, I think as part of Vision Zero, looking at each individual area where this concentration of crashes and things like that.
Again, the problem is being just regional isn't necessarily Urbana efficient, because you can maybe make a bigger reduction in, and this is being very selfish, but you can maybe make a big reduction in Champaign, and Urbana can still get worse, and it's all fine from the regional perspective. And that's, maybe that's being selfish, but Urbana is looking really bad compared to Champaign, and there's some things that Urbana specifically, and only Urbana, can do, and only if they are told that they have a problem, such as enforcement policies or speed ordinances or so on.
Yeah.
Personally, I mostly bike in Urbana, I mostly walk in Urbana, I mostly drive in Urbana. So that really affects me if I'm not aware of where the dangerous spaces to be are. And also, Urbana pays RPC a specific sum of money to get data on Urbana, and we want Urbana to be better. It's great that we're getting this community-wide data. I think that's really exciting, and I know we'll have better luck with grants and other things, but it really is important for us to know what's happening. Just as Savoy wants to know what's going on with their city, we want to know what's going on with our city, and I think we have every right to ask for that information.
Okay. So that's kind of where we are with the Vision Zero. The next one I found was our snow removal recommendation, which was actually, I mean, it was partially passed. So you may remember that our recommendation, the old snow removal areas where people are required to clear sidewalks after a snow event has been declared, were these green areas. So almost all of campus south of Springfield, and then a little downtown area around the Lincoln Square up to Water, down to Illinois. There's also another area over on Philo Road, just a strip of the sidewalk there. And our recommendation, if you remember, was to expand both areas north to University, include both sides of the University, and also connect the University and Green Street corridors and make those, since those were both heavily invested in by the city and the state, to make better sidewalks and side paths, and in the case of Green Street, are only bike lanes that connect to campus. So we wanted to make those sidewalks also in part of the snow removal areas. So they adopted the part that went north to University from both areas, but they didn't adopt the University and Green Street. And at the time, there was some pushback from residents on Green Street, and University was still finalizing their construction, so they thought maybe they'd wait on that. But that never came back, and I think the intent of council was to bring it back. But now it's a different city council, so we could remind them again of that. and see if they're interested in doing anything else.
And
with
Bill,
it.
if I remember, the hangup was people were concerned that there would be fines and people would not be able to pay the fines, and then they would be put in jail, and there was this like crazy cascading effect of things. And I just said, well, what if the fine is $3, you know? And I mean, seriously, like parking tickets here, people freak out over parking tickets, and parking tickets are like, I mean, I've just lived in so many cities where parking tickets are scary as heck. The parking tickets here are like, I mean, you just, and also the cost of parking is so cheap here. So to me, that just seemed like a red herring, the whole fine thing, but I'm willing to go back and say, how about there are no fines, or the fines are 25 cents an hour? I don't know. You know, like I'm willing to say, what would be an acceptable fine? Or do you really think people are not doing this because of fines? Because honestly, that was my understanding, is it was the fines, and that it was like this whole crazy.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of individual residents, homeowners on Green Street, that were concerned if they were going to be on vacation or something, and they might get caught with a fine. Or I think the snow removal ordinance says that after they get several warnings and several days to do it. I mean, 90% of the time the snow melts before it's even before you even have to shovel. But on the rare events where it doesn't happen, enforcement comes in, and potentially the city could end up shoveling and billing the.
And the city right now gives you a fine if your branches are growing over the sidewalk. They give you a fine for all these other reasons that you're impeding the right of way. So I found it just so strange. And you know, maybe it's our piecemeal approach. Maybe we just say everyone has to shovel their walk just in the same way everyone has to clear leaves from their sidewalk. You have to make sure branches aren't on your sidewalk. Maybe we bundle it. Can we bundle it with that somehow? Maybe that's the right approach.
Well, I mean, I think we wanted to focus on things that were enforceable. The other objective, I think, with our recommendations was to mostly cover commercial areas and apartments that are already required under ordinance to clear their walks within their lot. You know, like the apartment owners are supposed to clear their front walk and their sidewalks and their stairways and stuff, although not the public walk. They aren't required to do the public walk. But I think our thinking was that if these commercial entities were already paying somebody to do their own, it wouldn't be that much more of a problem for them to just say, yeah, you have to include the, you know, the sidewalk along the street. And a lot of them did anyway. So I think it was trying to make it more consistent in these areas and make it something that city staff could enforce. The problem with doing it citywide is that there's no way that city staff could enforce it. They're busy. You know, that's one of their busiest times is when they're clearing snow.
But like the way it's currently enforced when someone has like overgrown branches is it's Annie sending in a complaint saying the church over here hasn't cut back their branches, and
and then it gets enforced eventually, and they get to it when they have time. But when you have a snow emergency, there's just no way to.
But right now, people just don't shovel their walks at all, which is really bad.
So it's really more of an educational thing. I think we need to, I mean, that works sometimes, I think, in some neighborhoods. You know, in certain neighborhoods, it's not as bad because there is a little bit more social pressure. And, you know, we've tried the signs that say, you know, the snow angel kind of signs that say thank you for shoveling your walk and things like that. So there's still more stuff we could do like that that would probably be just as effective. I mean, that's been the discussion in the past. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth or make that argument on my own, but when we've discussed it multiple times, and I think most of the time we come to that conclusion is that rather than a citywide mandate, that half the people would still, you know, the same people are probably going to ignore it. It's just a matter of education and expectations, and then enforce what we can. So, but if you want, we could put it on the agenda again and
yeah, because I've never lived in a city that doesn't enforce snow shoveling. And like you said, it's never 100% enforced, no matter what city I've lived in. But at least as a pedestrian, you feel like it is illegal and you know it's illegal, and you do try to help other people around you because you're like, it is illegal. You actually do need to clear your sidewalk, and you try to make it, it's kind of a community building thing. Now it's just who cares? It's a who cares kind of thing. So I don't know. That, just my approach.
Okay,
like the-
well, we
Just
could
lived too
consider
far
putting
north
it
all
on the
my life.
agenda again, but I have a feeling nothing much would be different. I mean, we've also counted the number of snow events, and it's usually like, 2 a year or something, and it's hard to get people real motivated to,
There might be a heightened imperative after this weekend to do it. I think people will be
Yeah.
back on.
yeah.
What puzzles me about this, and maybe this is a lead into suggesting we talk about it again later, is I don't see on this map much of an imperative to clear the walks around Leal School, Urbana Free Library, Urbana High School, or even to get into the city building. You can't get, you do have to dig out, Bunnies gets dug out, right? We have to, the priority area will get you into the bars. I mean, it will clear the sidewalks around the bars over here, but the schools seem to be, and the library seem to be off the chart in terms of recommended. I think we
Yeah,
need to
I mean,
talk
that-
about that a little bit.
The school district, it does, usually do their own sidewalks, but yeah, the safe walk to school routes would, if we wanted to add something, we could consider that, adding the safe walk to school routes. That's a lot of routes, a lot of streets. We could have that discussion again if you want.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, what other recommendations? Okay, we had a bunch in our last year's annual report. Before I do that, I go ahead and mention the bike lanes, parking and bike lanes. We just passed not too long ago, in August. For a while, I thought that was gonna go to city council. It seemed like there wasn't a lot of discussion on that. But now I understand the police chief wants to send it to traffic commission first. So hopefully in January, it would be in the traffic commission. So when that comes up, if you're interested in commenting on that, I recommend you go to the traffic commission meeting, which is the first Tuesday of the month or second.
First Tuesday of the month, yep, at 12:10 or 12:15, something like that.
Okay, but we could send out a reminder when that comes up, if it's on the agenda. Then, from our annual report last year, let's see, did I cover all those? I think so. There were some kind of highlighted in red. So implement short and long-term solutions for the East Main Street corridor, including speed limit reduction, additional signage, street lighting, recommending alternative 2 for the KRT connectivity with addition of a sidewalk on the north side of Main Street and safe crossing for bus stops. So that was a pretty specific one. And we presented it to City Council. That's probably about as far as it'll go until there's some kind of funding connected to that area. The Baker's Lane that connects to Main Street, we put in an ITEP grant. We won't hear about that probably for a few more months. So if something happens with that, it's potential that would help initiate applications for additional grants to connect it the rest of the way. It would help boost that argument.
I would just like
but
to add in, like,
This was too big for a EQL project.
I would just like to say, though, like, this is the reason why we freak out when we see new infrastructure, like the infrastructure coming in on Florida, because we know once that infrastructure's in, it's going to be another 50 years before you get a chance to touch it again. And so it's like why we get so, why it appears BPAC sometimes is really irritated with new infrastructure and what happens with it is because we know once that infrastructure's in, such as University Avenue, it's going to be another 50 years before we can touch University Avenue and upgrade it to, actual contemporary safe infrastructure. That's just just wanted to share why we get so worked up.
We did ask City Council to make Vision Zero, implementation of Vision Zero a council goal. It didn't make it into their goals, as far as I know. We recommended they increase the sidewalk maintenance budget to at least 250,000, up from the current 120,000, because last year's capital improvement plan projected pretty even low maintenance funding. So I did bring up this year's capital improvement plan, which shows quite a bit this year, mostly from EQL funding, I assume. That's from the Community Development Grants Fund. Is that?
That's actually like in addition to the EQL, $2
Oh,
million.
okay.
Yeah.
So are there projects, is this kind of earmarked for any specific projects?
What we're doing right now is the $500,000, a lot of that's being spent towards engineering efforts related to EQL projects. Some of it's being spent on, sorry, I'm getting ahead in my staff report.
Ray Street and Colorado and things like that. I mean, when the bicycle ramps are part of the street project, does that come out of the sidewalk?
No, those come out of the like motor fuel tax
okay.
projects themselves. These are for dedicated sidewalk projects.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So yeah, so that was actually a recommendation that worked, I think. And when council talked about doing the $15,000 study at Water and Vine that Audrey mentioned, several of the council members remembered that presentation and said, you know, I hate taking this money from the sidewalk maintenance budget. Is there any place else we could take it from? So I think that one stuck. That was good.
Although I believe they did take it from the sidewalk maintenance.
They did. It was 15,000, and that happens. You know, the studies usually either come out of the bicycle or sidewalk funds. I mean, that's happened in the past. There is a separate line item though for studies. Maybe we should recommend that be boosted next time. Isn't that true?
Yeah, because the budget for traffic studies is just $10,000 a year right now, which
Yeah.
doesn't get you very far.
And you can't do that much.
No.
So that might be a recommendation. I don't know. Can we make a motion on that today, or does it have to be on the agenda specifically?
I think it's supposed to be on an agenda. We
Uh-huh.
can definitely put that on next month's agenda.
Yeah. Okay, so it's probably too late for 2023 recommendations, but we could definitely recommend that before the next budget, to increase the budget for.
And I forget, when
Traffic
did we complete this report last year? Was it in the spring? Was it March?
This was before, this was about the same time you were probably working on the capital improvement
Mhm.
plan.
Yeah.
But it was before they approved the budget, so.
That's-
And we had talked about it, you know, at BPAC, so you probably took that to heart when you made your capital improvement plan, hopefully. We also voted to request an increase in staff support for BPAC, to support BPAC's work. Important for healthy, vibrant, equitable community. You know, that still hasn't happened. Cat is definitely showing up to meetings more, and it's nice to have a planner here. I think what we were thinking though is actually someone that, you know, more like the arts, like arts has, that someone who has dedicated time, who could kind of push some of these ideas forward and integrate them more in the workings of the city, and kind of make it more consistent, so that like for applying for bicycle friendly community, you know, help coordinate that and things like that, and grant funding. No offense to you guys, I think you're doing the best you can, and you have other responsibilities. It would be nice to have someone who really was focused on that.
I
So
would
that-
say, I would
yeah.
just say, I'd like to add, yeah, just as that arts position can bring in additional grant money to cover the cost of the actual position, if not on top of including the amount of, you know, extra that comes in because of that. Same with this, is if we have somebody who's dedicated to really trying to find the money and figure out how to get these projects funded, and they're really aware of that grant schedule and what's coming down the pipeline, it would be really, really helpful to, you know, getting a lot of this stuff covered.
Yeah, so that's something we went to the city council, and the idea of that recommendation was to have the city council think of BPAC more like they do the Arts Commission or Sustainability Commission that has more dedicated staff. Then this recommendation, we asked them to look at the Traffic Commission to look at the crosswalk visibility at Washington and Race by the Pottery place there. And that never made it to Traffic Commission. The previous traffic engineer, city engineer, reviewed it and denied the request, said that it wasn't appropriate.
But is something happening there, or are you going to resubmit it?
Yeah, nothing really is going on. We could, I guess, I'd have to double check the bylaws of the Traffic Commission. I think if 2 members of the Traffic Commission want to put it on the agenda, then it could be on the agenda. So we could lobby 2 members of the Traffic Commission to get it on their agenda if we wanted them to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to just reconsider it and see what we can do in that space, because that is a high-traffic area for all sorts of people and vehicles, so.
Okay. We could, yeah, I don't know, so, yeah. So January was going to be, what were we going to go to in January? I already forgot. At the Traffic Commission, we wanted them to put something on the agenda. Oh yeah, the bike lanes. So that hopefully will be on there, because the chief said he wanted it to go to Traffic Commission. You want to lobby them before January and try to get this on the same agenda? And then you could get some bicycle issues all in one.
I just think it would be good to know what is possible in that space.
Yeah,
that
they
we've
might need more
identified a
time
safety
to consider it,
concern.
though. I don't know if they want to get a report or something from staff. You might need to give them more time to look at other options. Or, I don't know, they still have, we still have the letter from the previous traffic engineer.
I just know, like, I bike through that section that Craig Schoenig worked on, I always forget the name of that dang street. I bike through it every morning. It's on the University of Illinois campus. It's the street the city of Urbana owns and makes like $40,000 a month with parking. But anyway, they did a lot of white striping, and they put in stop bars, and it really made it a lot more visible for everyone who's using that space that this is, take caution. When you're passing through this space, take caution and be aware. And it works really well. It's a very complicated space, like this one. So I know it's possible to do, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, let's think about that one.
One historical footnote, if I might, years ago, when we found the money to replace 400 suicide storm grates in this town, the point man on it was a guy named Mark Alderson. He found the budget line in IDOT and wrote the proposal and got us the wherewithal to do something that the city at that time didn't have the resources to do. And he was actually an intern with us. I think he was a grad student in urban planning. All I'm suggesting is keeping a conversation open with the university to see if people want to help us out as part of their research projects or their advanced degrees might be a way of getting expert, energetic, cheap help.
Okay. The 3-foot minimum passing signs, Champaign County Bikes recommended several locations, and we reviewed those and asked the city staff to evaluate those. I don't know what's going on with that. Do you have any update on that, John?
It's on my short list of things I want to get to Traffic Commission, and I've not been able to dedicate the time to it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Also, I just mentioned that the state of Illinois installed several of those signs too, some of which were donated to IDOT. from Champaign County Bikes.
They did
Yeah,
install some, did you
yes,
say?
on 49, right. Isn't that the state of Illinois?
Okay.
Mm-hmm,
I don't remember seeing those.
yeah.
Oh, on 49,
Yeah.
over by Homer.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Uh-huh.
I've seen that one.
Which, it's funny to think that, a local organization gave a grant to the state.
Police chief did update some policies in bike registration and recovery. What else? I think that was it for our recommendations. Anybody think of any that we missed, that I missed, or that you wanted to talk about more?
I would say no, but that was really helpful. Thank you for doing that, or whoever asked for that to be done.
Yeah,
That was really
that was
helpful.
Audrey's idea, and I think that was good. There are a couple things that we should follow up on probably. And it sounds like you want to talk about snow removal again, so. Okay,
No, maybe I'll just make some social media posts, and if I do some social media posts, then it's all gonna work out. Everyone's gonna shovel their walks.
Yeah.
And if I put a sign in my front yard, that's what we should really do. It's so dumb.
okay, thanks. What's next on the agenda? Oh, Audrey, urban areas safety plan update.
I'm tired. Let's see. I know it's in here somewhere. It came earlier. Oh, okay, good. Okay, the first thing that I gave you guys was the grant fact sheet. Now, those with sharp eyes may have noticed that the grants were due like in, what was it, spring of 2020, or the application was released maybe in May. They call that spring. I call that summer. But anyway, the good news is that RPC actually did put in for a grant from the Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A, federal grant, which is kind of wide open and really directed at safety, a really great thing, several $1 billion, one of our new Secretary of Transportation's initiatives. And they actually put in a $25 million grant, and that's where the hope is that maybe some Vision Zero work would come out of that. I think they were hoping that MTD was one of the partners, and maybe MTD would have a marketing person to help get the messages out that we're struggling to get out, about driving and pedestrian behavior and so on. But an important thing to realize too is that they're going to have another round. They're planning for another NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, this spring. And there is no reason why Urbana couldn't apply for a grant as well, because it's also for planning purposes. The one that RPC put in for is for implementation. They already had a plan. That plan is called the Champaign-Urbana Urban Area Safety Plan, which is what we're going to kind of discuss a little bit tonight. So they had the plan, and for that reason, they were able to put in under the implementation side, which had a lot less competition because other people didn't have plans, and they rushed to get that Vision Zero resolution, and maybe rushed a little too fast, as you might know if you saw what I mentioned, and they made some updates to it to fit the grant parameters better, that they're going for zero, not just a little tiny incremental reduction every year as they had before. And And so we will see if they get that. But on the other hand, meanwhile, there's no reason Urbana couldn't apply as a municipality for a planning grant which would fund our Vision Zero activities. And I intend to try and get hold of the application for the Safe Streets for All. First of all, we don't know that they're going to get it. That's one thing for sure. And then second of all, just to see what kind of things they have asked for. Now, if that's all going for a project in Champaign, all the more reason that we better get our act together and put in for a grant for Urbana. Okay, so I need to see that, and I'll get back to you on that. But meanwhile, we should be looking at this. This is terrific as far as it's under what kind of activities are eligible. Develop or update a comprehensive safety action plan, which would be our Vision Zero action plan that's been awaiting some sort of staff assistance to get together, and for which we do need a task force. And right now, we haven't seen what RPC is going to call their task force. So far, it's been their safety committee that's stamps the plans as good, and that's pretty much does not include advocates. Let's just say a lot of professionals. And professionals, not to put down being a professional, but eventually you get used to a certain way of doing things and how it all works together, and advocates can be a little more focused. Okay, so what is Regional Planning Commission? It's, I'm going to take this off, it's too high. It's required by federal law for any urban area more than 50,000 people. And the idea is simply to, and this is on the next page that I handed out, I got this off of the, and I put that there. It's the government website that describes what its purpose is, and it fits our RPC. We call it RPC for short. It's the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, but it's actually provides services to more than Champaign County. It provides services to several counties in East Central Illinois. And for our purposes, we're like totally focused on the transportation part of that Regional Planning Commission, but it's actually only a small part of it. It's huge. It's $26 million budget. The transportation part is 1.6 million. So you can see we are actually pretty small, but for us here in BPAC, it's pretty big. It's pretty important that we take advantage of all they have to offer, and that when they're doing an analysis, we make sure we understand it and can use it, for example. So because they have a lot of resources that we don't have, and we've put those resources in as well. CUATS is on the back of here. A description of CUATS is on the back of the same page. It's the Champaign-Urbana Urbanized Area Transportation Study, and you're going to hear CUATS a lot. And that's basically just the transportation policy coordinating committee made up of all the agencies that you see listed there, Champaign and Urbana and the county, and the MTD is always important. And then the state comes in because they're the source of a lot of our grants, and they want to see how our regional plans go and how that fits into the state picture. And even Fed Highways comes in to make sure that their priorities are being addressed. We also have Savoy. And then the policy committee. So there's two committees of CUATS. That technical committee and the policy would be just like the mayors, the people who make sure it's fitting the direction of the people as they understand it, and the University of Illinois. So they have dues to help support RPC that actually runs that, and does most of the studies and so on. They have funds, and that's prorated by size of the city somehow. And then going back to the other side, one of the important things of every single metropolitan planning organization is getting that long-range transportation plan together, which covers the region as a whole, where we see growing, what we see as our transportation needs. And that is something that it's very, very important that people get involved with early. And in some years past, they have done an amazing job on public outreach. Other years, they maybe don't have funding, or the public interest just doesn't seem to be there. They have to make sure that there is public outreach in every single long-range transportation plan, but some years they go all out more than other years. And that's understandable. Every 5 years rolls around pretty quickly. They had a huge shebang in 2005 that was called Big, Small, All, and it was basically the start of this committee even, because all the people who were interested in transportation got together in a room and said, wow, we're interested in transportation. So, and that is very important for making sure that things like bike ped access are given their due weight in those plans. It's basically your vision of the future, and it doesn't just include transportation. It includes environment, housing, some economic development. Surprisingly, we don't think about it a lot, but rail, freight rail. So it's a really cool thing, and you've got. I printed for you guys these URLs, but I will send you the list so you can just click right on them. And do I have any questions so far? And those plans have to be realistic. They can't be pie in the sky. That's what they mean by it has to be fiscally restrained. And then there's lots of public notice required. So.
Thanks for putting together all these links in one place. That's great.
Yeah, and I will send it out to everyone after the meeting so that you're able to just click on the URLs. So I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so how to find resources. If we don't have any more questions on that, the fastest way to find the Vision Zero resolutions for the county and Urbana is to Google. RPC is a little harder because it's kind of buried with a funny URL or something, but it's there in case you want to look at it. And then there's the urban safety plan. Oh, it's not going to it. Control click. Yeah. Let me see if I have a website. Sorry, I use a Mac usually. Well, actually, that's not true. I use it half and half, but this is being a pain. Oh, there's a mouse. Okay. Maybe I can use a mouse. It's the copy and paste just isn't as nice as the... Okay, it's not going to go. Maybe someone else can come try clicking on it while I just talk about it. Somebody else who's more adept with. I'm trying to get the urban area safety plan. You do it. Okay. So the urban area safety plan was produced in 2019, and then they did this update, as I mentioned, in order to do the Safe Streets for All grant. And if you go through the safety plan, by the end of all that, it's hard to remember what I wanted this for. What they added to the safety plan was besides the Vision Zero resolution that was mentioned, is this equity analysis. And to their credit, they took a look at the traffic statistics and they decided that equity needed to focus on bike and ped fatalities. So they they looked at it in many different ways, and I was actually hoping Bill would be able to cover this because there's a lot of GIS statistics involved in it. They used only 6 years of data, though, from 2015 to 2020, and it's agglomerated again, so it's hard to say. I just went through and checked. They said that there were 45 total fatalities, and I just went through another site that I hope to show you, the city, the IDOT city summaries that showed 28 fatalities between Champaign and Urbana. So there were a sizable number of fatalities that were somewhere else, unless there's an error in there. And I was just going through that, and that's another,
That's
The-
all crash types?
yes,
Yeah.
all crash types
think-
45.
I think
They
actually
said there
the
were 10.
I think
Ped.
actually I-74 is included in the planning area between Champaign, Urbana, and Mahomet, but not towards St. Joe. So that could have, anything on I-74 would probably go into that too.
Absolutely, yeah. The 45 would go into the 45, yeah, because there were only 28 in Champaign and Urbana, which only, that's not great. That's, more than 6 a year. Or, I'm sorry, no, it's around 5 a year, a little less than 5. They added this, so the equity analysis, which I'm not going to go into in any detail right now, but as far as what they said, what to do about it, and that's where we get back to implementation, is they have a page or two, sometimes 3, for each emphasis area, such as DUI, pedestrians, or bicycles. And that's what Charlie just mentioned earlier. There is a bicycle implementation page. But this is the problem with the plan as it was, which Bill may remember, is, these all sounded great, but as far as who was going to do it, it was just kind of out there with no accountability whatsoever. So bicycles, emphasize the presence and vulnerability of bicyclists to all roadway users. That sounds perfect for having these 3-foot signs, doesn't it? and maybe Champaign did take it to heart. They seem to be reading it, but because they put 16 up. But but here it says who's going to do that? County, local cities, villages, and townships, public works and police departments. CU safe routes to school. Or for the pedestrians, install traffic calming measures along road segments and at intersections. Implement more lane narrowing and road diet measures. Woo, sounds just like University Avenue. And who's responsible for that? IDOT, Champaign County, local cities and villages and townships, public works. Or how about consider opportunities to reduce speeds through automated enforcement? Good luck with that. That would be speed cameras. But at least there, we could put up speed trailers to help remind people. So these are great ideas, and the analysis are very interesting, and the Vision Zero is in there, and they take public comment very seriously, every single public comment. I assume everyone, maybe they had to delete some for some reason, but was published as an appendix. So there was, if people wonder what other people thought of it or what's been pointed out, it's there, which is, again, they've done a fantastic job of that. And going back to, so the long-range transportation plan, this is going to be starting up in January, and I think it would be really cool. Maybe Gabe could address that too. Now we're piling things on his agenda. maybe he would, if he's involved, maybe he could address that as far as telling people what it is, because I don't want to take too much time. But I already mentioned it's our vision for the future, and it's very important to be involved with that. And I was hoping to be able to click on these things, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to. This one, that one right there. Long-range transportation plan. And then never mind. Let's forget him. Yeah, so one reason that I gave you guys URLs is a lot of these are extremely hard to find. You can't Google them. This is an older plan, and so somehow it's just not easy to find. You can sort of find the new one, but this is a cool site that they had for it, and you can go to. I'm sure I'm doing a great job selling going to these things. You can see here what promise. I think this is just going to be the last thing. These are the statistics that they used to do by city, and they're no longer doing. So I'm just going to show you real quick how cool that was. The historic fatalities all the way back to 1980 by cities. And they stopped doing it in 2018 and decided to just agglomerate it. And I think that they actually may have something of a rationale, though they could still do it because their boundaries make it a little bit complicated, as Bill mentioned, with I-74 and so on, maybe needs a little explanation of exactly what it is. And so I mentioned there were IDOT city summaries. I'm not going to attempt to go to the site now. It's really easy, though. When you go there, you see all the cities in the state for each year. And you can choose what year you want to see. Then there's a list of all the cities in the state. You click on it, and it gives you not only the fatalities, the pedestrians, the bicyclists, and so on, but also weather conditions and different things if you're interested. Okay, and so that one is actually very easy to look at if you need a quick check right now it's going back 10 years to 2010, and it's up to 2021, so they keep it pretty up to date. What they've done is do some QA/QC on what the cities send them to make those regularized. And then, okay, we've done that, the cities, and then this one, Urbana Open Data Portal. Bill Brown made a nice little script there that you can just click on, and you can see all the crashes in the city between 21 and 22, and it's very easy. It's a really friendly site that you can sort them by date.
Just the ones with injuries.
Just the ones with injuries,
Yeah.
okay.
There were a lot more.
Yeah,
but-
it says or injuries. That's all injuries, though. Also also car injuries.
Yeah, car
Yeah.
injuries, just
Mhm.
not crashes that didn't have injuries.
And
which
he mentions there
would
you need
almost
to
always be
scroll,
cars.
which I have forgotten at times. You need to scroll down because it only shows 100 at a time.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Because it does only show 100 at a time, and I couldn't, in order to sort on pedestrian, bicycle, and neither, I couldn't get pedestrians up at the top, so you have to scroll all the way down. to
Right, pedestrians are coded for some reason with a number that ends way past them at the bottom. Okay. And then the next couple of things are some just interesting things. I mean, once you click on one of these, it's hard to get away, but there's a crash data site that can list things by state, by, I don't know if it does city, it does do cities, states, cities, the national statistics. And there's, that last one is the Pedestrian Crash Facts. So that is an excellent publication. It's a fact sheet of a few pages long that actually shows you what the per capita rates are in cities and states in our country. And that's where I'm getting the rankings when I say, oh, we're worse than Chicago and way worse than Indianapolis, is from that particular publication.
The only thing I wish they'd add to that is the people at risk, because the census data does have data on pedestrian commute to work and bicycle commute to work that you can use to help normalize some of that, so that, Chicago may have, I don't know what Chicago's is, but I know that Urbana's pedestrian to work is a lot higher than Champaign, so you'd have to normalize it by the people who are actually walking, basically. Yeah. It seems like they should do that since the census data is out there, although commute to work isn't perfect because that doesn't include students, so I don't know.
Okay, well, I think that's enough for tonight.
But,
Any
well,
questions?
I just was also reflecting that we know about lots and lots of close calls too. Like, we know that we have the fatalities happening, but there's so many people that, have just gotten hit, or just barely got missed. And so when you talk about it's just low numbers, but it's not that really low. Like, there are lots and lots of close calls that shouldn't be happening.
And I do feel terrible about just focusing on fatalities because serious injuries are totally life-changing. And I'm just saying fatalities because it's hard enough to keep track of those numbers without adding the serious injuries. But they are terrible, and they do actually in that appendix in the safety plan reflect on that a little bit because of the Vision Zero emphasis on serious injuries and fatalities. It's not just fatalities. It's going for zero serious injuries as well. So I'm going to have to change my thinking, even though it's hard to wrap your head around because it's so many more. It's just lots and lots more if you add that. In fact, I believe the appendix in the safety plan mentioned that it works out to around 1 per month if you add that in. Whereas we're talking about 1 or 2 pedestrians a year with serious injuries, we're talking about like 12 apparently for the area. So that's just much bigger numbers, but that's what Vision Zero is actually going for, is those serious injuries as well.
Yeah, I think in that open data link, there's usually about 12 a year, but that's all injuries. That's just for Urbana, but it's all injuries, so serious and non-serious. But almost all pedestrian crashes result in injury.
Yeah, and I would also mention that while our rate works out to be like 4 times higher than Champaign, so even if we have double walking to work per capita, it's still large. But I also feel terrible that I have to beg for action when we have such terrible statistics. What if we just had run-of-the-mill statistics? We might as well not exist. So, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, reports of city official staff and committees. John, did you have a report?
All right, just wanted to give some updates on a few things. Yeah, and thank you, Audrey, for that really good summary of the RPC, CUATS, and the long-range transportation plan. Yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of great stuff out there. A lot of stuff that, we've got a good group in this area for planning. You make some really good points about ways that can be better. So thank you. We got some sad news to share with the group. Kat Trotter is leaving Urbana and going to Champaign. This will be Kat's last meeting with us tonight. So, sad to see her go, but glad that you're still in the area. And Nick Olson, one of our planners, will be joining us at meetings starting in January. And kind of tagging along with my planning colleagues and the long-range transportation plan, like Audrey mentioned, the steering committee for the 2050 transportation plan will be starting up in January. And Lily Wilcock, one of our planners, will be Urbana's representative on that. Steering committee, which I think will make a lot of sense, as she's been working diligently on the comprehensive plan for Urbana recently. So we're going to make sure to keep that same kind of focus and her expertise to that committee. Just some project things. For the pavement markings, just want to give an update on the pavement marking contract that we had. Supply issues prevented our contractor from completing any of the urethane bike symbols this year. So they will be completing that in April when it warms up again. So we've got a extension on that contract through late April to get that put down. Let's see, traffic engineering studies. We did get a budget amendment passed yesterday, so we will be getting our consultant under contract with that. And in the spring, when we get back to the kind of normal conditions to get good data for traffic and pedestrians, they'll start with data collection on some of these corridors with high-star passive magnetic imagers, which is a fancy way of saying a square puck that'll be taped to the pavement for speed and vehicle type and other data like that it will collect. And it'd be a nice way to get it with kind of minimal influence on the drivers. They won't know that it's there. So use that for our speed studies, along with myovision camera for turning movements, pedestrian counts there on Vine Street. Then for the sidewalk improvements that we've got going on, we've just in the last couple weeks awarded a contract to A&A Construction for about $190,000 to do repairs to existing sidewalks in low to moderate income neighborhoods. We'll be doing it over the winter with a completion date of March 24th. We have some CDBG money that we need to get spending, and so it's an opportunity for us to get in front of that with some, and this is a real testament to the great, planning efforts been going on in this area, in recent years between the sidewalk network inventory assessment that was done in 2016 and the pedestrian master plan for Urbana in 2020. This was great data that we could really glean and pretty quickly come up with low-hanging fruit to go and attack with these CDBG money. Along with that,
What does the temperature have to be to work on those? Just curious.
yeah, sure. Well, and it's not ideal because it makes the prices higher to do sidewalk in the winter. You have to do some take some special steps to deal with frozen grounds. You might cover it with blankets, do other things to make sure it's not frozen before you put the concrete on. Use curing blankets with the concrete if you're going to have low temperatures. So there's some extra steps. It's not ideal, but it was kind of just the, and I'll take blame for this. It's just the bad timing of when we got the contract together and going. But we will do better next year on that one. Then sidewalk improvements, we're going to be going into design also this winter for a lot of it is the EQL projects, again, mostly in low to moderate income neighborhoods, with designs starting up here and see if we can't get some construction started in 2023. And then real quick too, I'm glad Audrey brought up the SS4A grant, and I can't remember if I had gotten a chance to share with BPAC what part we had in that application, but we had the Lincoln Avenue project from Washer to Killarney. Part of that project is the implementation, and I will, if I didn't already do so, I'll share the application with BPAC so you guys can take a look, get to see what that content was. Great, that's all I've got.
Which stretch of Lincoln did you say from Washington?
From Washer to Killarney, so just north of King Park, up to Killarney, just south of the interstate. Yeah, which was what we're hoping for is a road diet there, and we'd get into a planning stage initially with either looking at on-street bike lanes or bike path, side bike path. Either way, it'd be a road diet. And some of especially the advantage of trying to go from the 4 lanes to a 3-lane cross-section, give us opportunities for safer pedestrian crossings with some raised medians and things like that. But yeah, fingers crossed, see what we can get.
Any questions for John? When you do the, I don't know if you just now mentioned it, but I think before you mentioned there was kind of a package of safety studies as part of EQL, like speed studies mostly, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you do a RFP for all those at once and just get one engineering firm kind of under contract to do those, or?
Yeah, for the efficiency of bundling them together. Yeah.
And then do you specify like how they go about the study, or do they have a standard way of doing it? Like, I know there's been some concern with this 85th percentile usage of that, and I think I don't know if there's a different way to do it, but I think the strong towns perspective on that is that you use the results from that to make physical changes in your street. So if it turns out that they are going 30 miles per hour, 35 miles per hour, and that's what the speed limit is, then we know that that's too fast there because there's been a lot of crashes and fatalities or accidents or whatever, then we know that that's an area that needs changes in the infrastructure.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, I guess that's kind of a long question of how much specification of those kinds of things do you do, or is that something that's more standard?
Yeah, that I don't get into, mostly citing standard documents for, kind of guidelines of how they structure their study and the analysis they use. So, no, in this particular, I don't personally get into that. I know that one thing that I'd be really interested in pursuing as we get this speed data in is to then do some test locations of some traffic calming on these same stretches, and then we can have a before and after, data set. And that's what I'd really like to see. And definitely, if Charlie's, if you're willing to share some of those examples you showed up there, I'd love to see some more of those. That's the traffic cones and kind of temporary test cases. That'd be the kind of things I think we'd love to try out.
Okay.
John, there was one speed study that wasn't for EQL, I think. Where was that? Do you know?
Probably thinking of the one on Glover Avenue. That was one that came out of a neighborhood association meeting with a police officer, and they brought it to Traffic Commission as well. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we need to approve the 2023 meeting calendar. So John passed out a list of dates, and it's just part of what everybody has to do at the beginning of the year is approve, as part of the Open Meetings Act, I think, approve the meeting calendar for the year. And so these would be regular meetings, and then if they get changed, you have to do certain noticing. So any thoughts or concerns about any of those dates? The June meeting would be a conflict with the holiday. So there wouldn't be a regular meeting that month, but if we wanted to have a special meeting, we could probably schedule one the day after. Sometimes in the summer, we take a month off anyway. If there's no concerns or discussion, or somebody like to make a motion to approve this list of meeting dates? Moved by Bruce. Is there a second? Second by, I'm sorry. Yusuf?
second, yes.
Yusuf, okay. Any other discussion on that?
Would
All in favor, say aye.
are we implying that the June meeting is considered canceled, or do we want to try to?
Oh, so we could just go ahead and make a regular meeting date for that now? Just say this 21st or something?
I think we could. yeah.
Okay. Would you want to do that? Put that in, and then if we need to cancel it, it would be easier to cancel than to notice a special meeting.
All right.
So the
So-
20,
Looking at the calendar, the 21st is a Wednesday, 20th is a Tuesday.
yeah. So the official date for Juneteenth is
On my calendar is Monday.
Mhm.
Okay.
Monday the
Should be
19th.
oh, but the city council meeting would be Tuesday. That's why there's a conflict.
Right. Right.
Does that happen on any other Mondays, like King Day?
What?
In January, wasn't that sometimes an issue, or does? When's the King holiday?
I'm having a hard time understanding. When is the King holiday? Oh, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, does that happen in January? Did you check that? So that would happen in January too, wouldn't it? The city council would meet on Tuesday.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's how it has happened in the past.
Yeah, unless they cancel their meeting. So why don't you change that to the 18th?
There's been times we just met in the conference room upstairs on the same day, too.
Yeah, we could meet in the conference room.
Right.
You want to leave it on the 17th and meet in the conference room? Okay,
What I'll do after this meeting is make sure that we can get those spaces. And if for some reason we can't, we'll coordinate that with the committee.
okay. So what do we do with June? Same thing, when just try
Yeah, I
to
think
do
we could-
conference room?
Use that logic and use the conference room upstairs.
Okay, so leave that 6:20, right? And then we'll use conference room. So that's a Tuesday. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so all the dates as written is the motion, right? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, curbless downtown. Annie has a idea. Should be. Just open it from there. Up arrow. Okay. Probably the extension. You might need to change the extension or something. Can you change the extension? PPT. Yeah, repair. It's not my file. That seems, oh. Yeah. Do you have the PDF?
Boom. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about an idea called, it's basically curbless infrastructure. And the way I'm going to present it is almost like Lego building blocks. I'm going to go through previous presentations that I've made, and then we'll kind of bring it all together. And talk about, I'll show you a couple infrastructure projects where people are using the curbless infrastructure. So what we're looking at right now is downtown Urbana. If you're coming up from Main Street, and you see these large, highway-sized traffic lights, and I think all of us can agree that it's a really nice space to drive through quickly. It doesn't seem like a space that if you're a person approaching this on foot or bike, that you really want to spend time here, or if you would even know where, if there were a space to even like sit down and watch people or get a cup of coffee and look around. But it is a really great space to drive a vehicle through or to park a vehicle in, and I can attest to that. I can always park for free pretty much right in front of wherever I want to be. And there used to be a large blue bike rack that got removed. It has never been reinstalled, so there's not even like a public display of bike parking in our downtown anymore. So what I'm going to go through is sort of existing conditions from 2018, a 2018 presentation, the Urbana Slow Street Survey results from a 2021 presentation, chicanes from a 2017 presentation, and then curbless downtown districts. Our downtown district right now, as does Lincoln Avenue, and quite a few other spaces over Carl, if you're trying to cross the street over on Carl and University Avenue, we have these things called beg buttons. And what it means is you have to, we also put them in on Green Street at Lincoln Avenue. And those are like super far apart. Like you have to like hustle over and find it and then push it and then hustle over and find it. It's really, beg buttons, you have to push a button to cross the street. So downtown Urbana has these everywhere. And of course, the obvious question is like, why don't we ask our car drivers to do the same thing? If we're treating everyone equally, since we all pay the same amount to use this infrastructure, why are car drivers not being forced to roll down their windows and hustle over and push a button? So in downtown Urbana, we have, these are videos. Well, they're not videos, aren't going to work. So let's see. Anyway, there's videos that we showed in 2018. It's about 40 seconds to wait, and I would normally just sit here for 40 seconds and let you watch what an uncomfortable situation that is to stand there and wait for a minimum of 40 to 90 seconds to try to cross the street on foot. Most people, and you'll see even in this quick, which I cannot show you this video here, they wait about 10 seconds. Most people are not complying. They are illegally crossing the street. And even in this short video, people are illegally crossing the street all over the place. So most people just wait about 10 seconds. They'll push the button and then they just go forward. So it's really not a great experience. If you're out of your car and you actually want to go to a local business and spend money, it's not a really good experience for you because you don't feel very welcome. You don't feel safe either. So it feels pretty hostile. You're not welcome here. It's not safe. It's not attractive. It sends the message like, even, Green Street and Lincoln, you are not the norm. All these cars driving on Lincoln and Green, they're the norm. You don't belong here. Stop. We don't want you looking around here. Stop. We don't want you here. Frequently you feel it's just not worth the wait to cross the street, to check out the shops and spend your money or your time there. And then in 2018, the question we had was, what if we reduce the number of signals in our downtown and we just did like stop signs? And something that happens with stop signs is drivers pay attention to pedestrians and other obstacles at stop signs because they have to take an active role in deciding when to stop and when to go. So obviously there's a lot of, it would take different infrastructure concepts to get us to stop signs because right now we have, multiple turning lanes. We have, really great highway infrastructure in our downtown space. In 2021, we did Urbana Slow Streets. We did a survey. And so the lead off to the survey was some cities have modified streets in response to the pandemic by creating routes with lower speed limits or restrictions on through traffic to connect local landmarks. Some have allowed residents to apply for temporary block closures to create play streets for children. Some have closed streets in commercial areas to let restaurants use additional space for outdoor seating. What option appeals the most to you? And honestly, when we put out this survey, we were really trying to get people to suggest their local streets. Please list any street you think would benefit from one of these above changes. We had 165 results, and over 26 of them had Main Street, Broadway, Vine Race, Elm, open downtown to foot traffic only, outdoor dining for downtown areas for restaurants, close Main Street all summer, scheduler permanent closures for downtown, scheduled or permanent, Main and Race streets for Friday night events in downtown, Lincoln Square Mall, and no, honestly, I did not put all these in myself. We were honestly just super surprised because this was not what the survey was about. Lincoln Square Mall, especially during farmers market, allow it to spread out. Illinois Street, especially on market Saturdays. Streets around downtown to encourage people to walk and bike to the library, farmers market, Lincoln Square Mall, restaurants, Strawberry Fields, UIUC campus, and K-12 schools, etc. So this was presented in 2021. In 2017, I brought up this concept of chicanes because I had noticed in Urbana there was this concept of stripping parking, but they'd strip parking just on one side of the road. So what happens is if you strip parking on one side of the road instead of on one side on this street, one side on this street, one side on this street, it allows for swiftly moving traffic because cars don't have to pay attention and be like, whoa, there's a car parked there now. Whoa, hey. A chicane is a series of alternating mid-block curb extensions or islands that narrow the roadway and require vehicles to follow a curving S-shaped path, discouraging speeding. Chicanes can also create new areas for landscaping and public space on the roadway. So now we're getting into the curbless area and what some solutions might be. So shifted parking, median and curb bump outs. This is Cottage Grove, and an idea for Cottage Grove would be to put in a crosswalk, traffic circles, median, and you could, this is a street in particular where people complain about it all the time. There's a yellow house on the corner where there's accidents, I think once or twice a month. Cars are destroyed there. It's across from Harache's. And people I know who live on this street have complained multiple times to the city about speeding traffic. There are ways that we could solve this issue. So this is the intersection. If you just turn around 360 yourself, we could do something like that. We could do crosswalk, traffic circle, median. So just kind of sort of introduce some things to say the space isn't just for vehicular movement. So the curbless downtown. Now this is a WUNRF area, which is a similar word as curbless downtown, but frankly, the WUNRF is very confusing. When I tell people we should WUNRF something, people think I'm crazy. So it's a German word. But Shannon, who used to work here, worked on this delightful WUNRF, the first in Urbana, Illinois, and it is the Civil and Engineering Building. And the WUNRF area is a plaza area for pedestrians, cyclists, and parking with potential future use for autonomous vehicle testing. And so as you can see, there's like no curb. They did put up a bunch of those stanchions, but there is no curb. The curb is just soft. And so when you're moving through this space, you can walk right down the middle of that area because the way it's designed is you feel very comfortable biking or walking there. You don't feel cars are going to move super quickly and kind of push you out of the way. This was the first one I'd ever seen, and this was Argyle Street in Chicago. And this section was what they would call in Chicago like a blue light area. So they have these police cameras on like either section of it. So it was an area that the business owners were just like, please, yes, anything. So they did a curbless, basically a curbless area, but they called it a WUNRF. That word's just hard for me. But what it means is pedestrians, cyclists, and cars all have to kind of negotiate the space together, and you're doing design interventions in a way that make it so everybody knows it's a shared space and we're all working together to move through the space. What it's allowing for is outdoor dining and seating. It still allows for parking because the parking then kind of acts as bales of hay or something, you know, so it acts as these sort of barriers. If you want to see the beautiful drawing, and this, I'll make, the PDF has actual links to everything on here, so I can share this out with actual links to all the different spaces that are on here. But as you can see, they took like a 4-lane road and they just made it, they added streetscaping, they added bricks to make it look different. Really, like in a lot of ways, standard things. They have your bollards over here on Winthrop. They shut down. It makes it easier to shut down the street. So they started doing Argyle Night Market. It was a space people did not want to be in at night. But by doing this intervention, it made it so people wanted to be there. So I've just been pretty excited about these spaces because I've been trying to figure out what the heck we could do at downtown Urbana because people really want to have vehicles and bikes and buses moving through downtown Urbana. But how do we make it so we can also get money from businesses? This was in the Michigan Alumni Association magazine. That's how excited they are about it. State Street in downtown Ann Arbor is going through a major facelift to improve pedestrian safety and accessibility. The Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority, we'll get into what they are, DDA, is installing a curbless design along the iconic street. And this means the street will be completely flush with the sidewalk from one side of the road to the other. The move is being made to prioritize pedestrians by improving safety and accessibility. I think that's, on the right, you'll see the current that photograph is a current Google view of what it looks like. And then you'll see what they're going to be. They're making it so there's just like more outdoor seating. They're basically like taking away a car lane and they're making it more of a people place. So it still allows for vehicular movement and other things, but it's making it people know that this is a space for people and we want people here. And we're excited that you're here and we want your money. No. State Street is one of the most diverse downtown streets. This is from the project site. Bordering the University of Michigan Central Campus. It's the quintessential intersection of town and gown. I really hate that term. This project will improve safety, accessibility, and ease of navigation for all users. So if you've not been in Ann Arbor, that area, the area with the white buildings, that's like a galleria, and then the area where it's red right now, that's sort of you're entering the University of Michigan space where the red area is. Prioritize pedestrians given the high volume of pedestrian activity, enhance street lighting, accommodate bus and service truck access, support, which I would be curious to see how they're working through that. Because obviously they have a lot of trucks and buses that come through here. Support and that load and offload. Support special events, and which is why we end up with trucks parked in bike lanes because they don't know where to put their truck and they got to deliver stuff. Support special events and street closures, so it's designed specifically that we just might shut down these streets every now and then. Reflect State Street's district character and context, improve drainage, and better manage stormwater. It's my understanding that sometimes with these curbless spaces, drainage becomes a problem, so that's something to be aware of. Create more spaces for business activities, provide more flexible curbside zones, repair critical infrastructure and utilities, complete a bikeway. So Curbless Downtown is being presented by the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. And their mission is to undertake public improvements that have the greatest impact, no, I have no idea how they're funded, that have the greatest impact in strengthening the downtown area and attracting new private investments. It was passed by the state of Michigan in 1975 to give municipalities an economic development tool they could use to rebuild and reposition their downtowns, increase tax, no idea how it's paid for. Probably sounds like the state. If you go to their website, and again, there's a link on this, there's like 5 links, and one of the links is people-friendly streets. And so they talk about why they want people-friendly streets. They're focused on making the streets in downtown Ann Arbor safe and comfortable for people of all ages and abilities, all modes of transportation. These projects prioritize people, placemaking, and resiliency. People-friendly street projects are shaping the following values and goals: safe, comfortable downtown streets, equitable, just access for all people, affordable and inclusive community, vibrant, thriving local economy, resilient energy, responsible downtown, responsible design, and implementation. And that's it. So that's just I just thought it'd be interesting to sort of share some ideas and thoughts. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or comments? Questions?
Annie, I was expecting to see raised intersections in there for being curbless. No? Because there's no curb, so you can't raise it.
It's not necessary. That's the beauty of it. It's just designed, speed is designed out of the space. You don't want to speed through there. You don't, because the streets are narrow and because they because you as a driver have to pay attention. You as a cyclist have to pay attention when you're in those spaces because there's people walking everywhere. There's, it's like when you bike through imagine it's like when you bike through one of the intersections on Green Street when they're on all walk. You as the cyclist have to be aware when you're biking through those intersections that there might be pedestrians coming or there might be other cyclists coming from other directions. So basically what it's doing is it's slowing everyone down and making everyone an equal user of the space. Yeah, but it's I don't want to say it's magic. It's basically you're putting what it would be like. Imagine if like in front of where we have the curbanas, those actually get bumped out into full. I mean, they did it like in downtown Indianapolis. They get bumped out into actual spaces where people can actually sit and be and hang out. And again, I know it seems really weird, but it absolutely works. And it also works because there's just something gets triggered that you're like, wow, this is a different kind of space that I'm now entering and moving through. So
I think one of the original proposals for the development on University and Lincoln, the Gather, that also developed across the street on Clark Street. One of their original thoughts was to turn Clark Street into kind of a pedestrian plaza and have the south side match the north side a little bit more, but that evolved away during the development discussion process.
But I think these things can happen slowly. Like I think Green Street will become, this is what will happen to Green Street in the next couple of years. They will just make it a curbless space. Because they'll keep allowing traffic to move through there. But right now they have such a higher rate of pedestrian traffic than they have of any other type of traffic. They're going to have to open up their streets and just move it. What I actually think was so funny when I realized this was shared through the Michigan Alumni magazine is I was working on Green Street when they put in the bike lanes, which was really great for me because it made my commute way better. But I went into a local store there, and it's one of the stores that sells, University of Illinois stuff, and they were freaking out. They're like, oh, this is going to be homecoming. It's going to be shut down. The alumni are going to hate this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, the alumni don't live here. Do you see the number of high rises we have coming in? Like, it's just so funny I was like, it's going to work out.
But it's counterintuitive. So I think you have to kind of find a place to do it so it works.
Yeah.
Just like bike paths and trails like we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
People were sure of all kinds of bad things would happen, and then once it happened, they changed their mind. But so we have to find ways to strategize.
And Green Street desperately needs outdoor seating, and I mean it's going to be a huge moneymaker. Once they take away once they make it curbless, it's going to be just a massive economic boom for that area. But yeah, I mean, it would be delightful if we did something. I mean, I personally enjoy being in downtown Champaign. There's a lot of places to walk around and look at, and downtown Urbana for me, it's just a lot of cars moving through the downtown space. So if that's what we want, we're doing a great job with it. So.
Well, I guess, one in downtown Urbana, I do wonder if those lights have been retimed, because I've been walking through there a lot recently, and it doesn't seem like it's that long. Although I will admit, if you're on a bicycle, they can be pretty far from the street for the buttons. The one issue that I see with it is that they would have to move the buses, because buses go down Main Street. And I mean, the buses are pretty central to that area, and I don't see buses being compatible with a curbless area.
Yeah, buses fit, trucks fit. They just move slower. They move at 10 miles an hour, which is what they do now anyway, right? But yeah, they just move at a slower pace. Everything just moves at a slower pace. That's all. I mean, technically, if you didn't want the buses there, you could put them behind, behind the big parking deck. But,
Helm.
yeah, you can't, okay. But yeah, so, they just would move at 10 miles an hour, just like, because you're gonna have to have places for trucks to load and unload and all that stuff. I mean, we're not
Thanks.
the first people to think about this. This is all
Thanks,
over the
Andy.
world.
It's good looking at
Yeah.
all those pictures and getting some ideas. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like, if not Main Street, there could be other areas too.
One thing I'd like to, I guess, comment on, we talk about a lot of these curbless areas specifically for heavy commercial areas, but the places I've seen them most implemented are often smaller residential streets. And it's the one thing I kind of notice even walking around Urbana, excuse me, a lot of people like to just walk on the street rather than on the sidewalks. And so kind of wonder why have the separation when people don't even use it that way, to just put them on the residential only streets, because that's kind of where we really want to reduce the traffic as well.
And then what kind of snow shoveling requirements are there going to be?
Okay, we're running out of time. Let me just bring up, I was gonna do a quick overview of some municipal traffic calming policies, because one of John's long-term goals is to have an Urbana traffic calming policy, from what I hear. So I thought we could kind of start thinking about, I'll just bring up one example, and then I'll put a bunch of them in a folder and send you a link. I'll just go through one real quick so you see what we're talking about. This is from Naperville. They call it a toolkit there. The idea is to, in their example, they have like several levels or steps to take depending on the circumstances. So they've kind of divided it into level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And then they break down the different treatments in this chart. So it says like non-physical measures is level 1. They have education, targeted speeds, stop control enforcement, enhanced stop signs like the new ones at Washington and Vine, some of those sort of things. Next level of non-physical, and then physical, and then other physical. So they kind of go up in cost, from what I can tell, but also how just depending what's needed. So they've kind of broken everything down into what it. It's just kind of a nice way to present it in this chart. So that's just kind of one example, and they've figured out which kinds of streets to apply it to, and then they have a bigger explanation of each type in a whole page. So by having it in a policy like that, you don't have to kind of get creative on the fly every time somebody comes to a traffic commission meeting. This explains each one. So that's the enhanced speed limit, enhanced stop sign. There's that enhanced stop sign like we have.
Did you say this is Naperville, or?
This is Naperville. I found about 10 so far. A lot of cities have them. But I thought this was just well presented and easy to understand. This was one of my favorites, I think. So like this, this is a traffic calming measure. It's not not what you'd want to use during a speed study, because it works and people actually slow down when they see their speed. So when you have a speed trailer up and you're doing a speed study at the same time, you're going to get bad data. Yeah. Your speed, yay. Yep, so that's basically the idea of what a traffic calming policy is. So I just, in case you hadn't come across them before, I'm putting together some examples, and you know, some of them have different treatments, but a lot of them have kind of the same treatments. But having that chart and having it organized and having a procedure to follow, sometimes they, you know, people can collect petition signatures and then come to their traffic commission and ask for something specific, or just, it makes sense. So I'm glad that that came up on your radar, that's something you wanted to do. And when I heard you say that, I thought, oh yeah, I bet some other cities already have them. And I was looking around, and I think that it would really be helpful to have something like that.
I think it'd be really helpful for people who are not like super geeks like us, who spend all of our time trying to like figure this stuff out. Like, it'd be so helpful to be able to send citizens there and say, well, here, like, you know, Bela Hay is number one. Number two is that, like, just say, and this is, you can put this little kit together. We're not telling you it's going to happen, but you can put a little kit together and present it. And I think it's a great idea.
Last week, Market Watch published a list of the top 20 places to live in America. You got to take those with a few tons of salt. But on this list, number 1 was Madison, number 2 was Ann Arbor, and Naperville was in the top dozen. My point is, you know, these places have got a lot of money, a lot of resources.
Yeah.
We don't. And so when we look around, plausibility and affordability have to be factors. I believe in dreaming big dreams, but then we got to get down and figure out what we can actually do here that could be done.
Although that kit really looked pretty affordable. I mean, as far as the treatments, like lighting some
Yeah,
signs. I mean, one Safe Streets for All grant, and we're there. And just coincidentally or not, Naperville was also listed by Forbes as the safest city in America. I mean, it was on Forbes. I think some other group had listed it. They were reporting it for medium cities. It had the lowest crime cost per person.
But,
And
you know, it's
Naperville, as well
very
as-
expensive. All you have to do is charge people $2 million a house, you know, and see to it your population, you know, is demographically and racially adjusted accordingly. And yeah, you can have safety. You probably can fire all the cops.
Well, I just like their attitude. I mean, they banned assault weapons immediately after the Highland Park.
Well, I thought they did a good job putting it. One of the nice things about having money is you can have somebody come up with a good policy. So you know, I think that made a good example. I have family in Naperville, and it's not especially walkable once you get out of the downtown. So that's just the way, you know, those kind of places develop.
Everybody's got a Lexus. I think that's comes with the voter's card.
But
Okay,
I
so
really
we're-
like the kit,
we're running
Bill.
out of time
Yeah,
here.
I like the kit, Bill. I think it's something we could, I like the idea of us, because we all know that we don't have staff that, for us. So I think it's on us if we want to try to work with staff and try to put something together. I think it's a great idea.
Well, I think John really is going to do it. I could tell that was really something he wanted to do, so I think he will. And I think if we have a chance to go through these examples, and he can look at them, and we can provide feedback on what we think would work in Urbana.
I'll bring this up later and more patiently, you know, at the right moment, but if you look at a town with a budget plausibly like ours, like Menominee, Wisconsin, one of the ways they energized their downtown, brought in pedestrians and then caused a domino effect of bicycle and pedestrian development, was to put a very attractive wooden shed-type structure over their farmer's market, which extended the season, guaranteed every Saturday would be thronged, and really create something unique in the whole area. And that's something you really could afford to do. And with all the empty spaces and underused parking lots we have down here, this is not beyond the realm.
You could use that parking garage for something other than cars.
Sure, exactly. Or you just take the open space, you know, behind Lincoln Square, or the great dead zone behind the, you know, what used to be the Jolly Roger. There's space for this kind of thing. That's
Okay,
for another date, not for now.
We're going over our time. Are there any announcements? Any future topics that we want to talk about tonight in 30 seconds? Okay. So next meeting in January, and we expect to see hopefully the RPC people here, right?
I'll get my invitation written right away.
Okay. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.